I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, but I was too naive, too trusting of the man I thought I knew. It was a crisp November evening when my life imploded. I had just returned home from another long day of teaching sophomore English literature, looking forward to a quiet evening with Derek. But when I opened the mailbox, a plain, unmarked envelope caught my eye. No return address, just my name scrawled across the front. Puzzled, I tore it open, and that's when my world shattered. The envelope contained photographs, explicit photographs of Derek with another woman. A younger, slender redhead draped over him in a cheap motel room. More photos showed them together at restaurants, laughing and canoodling like lovesick teenagers. It made me sick to my stomach. But it got worse. Along with the photos were documents, bank statements, hotel receipts, all pointing to a torrid affair that had been going on for months right under my nose. What the hell is this? I seethed as Derek strolled through the front door, all cheery smiles after another prosperous day running his auto repair shop. His smile vanished when he saw the evidence splayed out on the kitchen table. "Evelyn, I can explain." "Explain what?" I roared, rage and betrayal boiling over. I grabbed the photos and flung them in his face. "That you've been lying and cheating on me? With this scarlet hussy?" Derek recoiled, eyes widening with panic. "No, baby, you've got it all wrong. Those photos, they're not what they seem." "Not what they seem?" I let out a hollow, mirthless laugh. "So you're saying these bank statements detailing your motel liaisons are forgeries? The phone records showing you two talking for hours until the early morning are faked?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Caught in his tangled web of deceit, he simply gaped like a fish gasping for air. "I want the truth, Derek." My voice was low, deadened by the heavy shroud of despair cloaking me. "All of it. No more lies." After an agonizing silence, he finally spoke in a hoarse whisper. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. You're right. I've been having an affair with Miranda for almost a year now." His eyes dropped in shame. "I never meant to hurt you." I zoned out as he babbled his pathetic excuses and empty platitudes. The man I had loved, trusted, and sacrificed so much for had been living a sordid double life right under my nose. My best friend, my partner, my everything. Gone in an instant with his admission of guilt. This wasn't just a random fling. This was calculated betrayal, both emotionally and financially. For over a year, he had been stealing from me. My money, my heart, my future, all a lie. As I stood there numb, the dam of hurt and fury rising within me, one thought crystallized with terrifying clarity. Derek Jordan has awoken a vengeful storm. And by the time I was through with him, this snake would be crushed beneath my heel. I would make sure of it. The old naive Evelyn was dead, and the woman staring back at me in the mirror, jaw clenched in icy determination, would stop at nothing to regain what was rightfully hers. "So that's your excuse?" I spat. Derek's feeble apology still ringing in my ears. "You never meant to hurt me?" Derek opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off with an icy glare. "Don't even try to deny it. The evidence is right here." I shoved the incriminating photos and documents against his chest. "I want the full truth, right now." Shoulders slumping in defeat, he finally nodded. "Okay, you deserve to know everything." Over the next torturous hour, the sordid details of his betrayal came pouring out. Derek confessed to meeting his mistress Miranda at a conference over a year ago. What began as a drunken fling soon spiraled into a full-blown affair, complete with secret rendezvous at sleazy motels and extended business trips. "We were just having fun at first," he mumbled, but the excuse made me shake with revulsion. Then things got complicated. "So that's your justification? A fling that got complicated?" I laughed bitterly, anger solidifying into steel resolve. "Complicated doesn't begin to cover your lies, Derek. Not just the emotional betrayal, but look at these statements." I rifled through the documents, slamming down page after page detailing his deceit. "Charges for hotels, expensive dinners, jewelry, that's not just a fling. You stole from me, from our life together." Derek's pasty face grew even more pallid. "I never meant. Don't." I roared. "Don't insult me even further with more excuses. You made your choices, now live with the consequences." Jaw clenched, knuckles whitening, Derek's salesman mask finally cracked, revealing the ugly truth beneath. "You think you're so innocent in all this?" he hissed, eyes glittering with malice. "You've been so wrapped up in your work, you basically abandoned me, ignored me, neglected me. Don't act so high and mighty." The vicious words struck like a physical blow, but I refused to crumble. I met his venom with a contemptuous sneer. "It must have been so hard being ignored by your loyal, devoted wife so you could carry on your sordid escapades." His face darkened further at my withering sarcasm. "And what about Miranda, huh? She understood me, appreciated me, didn't nag or belittle me over every little thing like you always did." "Understood you?" I scoffed. "More like indulged your selfishness. That's all she did, gratify your disgusting impulses as her ticket to a sugar daddy." Derek recoiled, my barb clearly striking a nerve about his mistress's true nature. Good. Let him dwell on that betrayal, too. As my so-called husband continued flailing, spinning more lies to justify his actions, I tuned out the empty platitudes. I was done listening, done being jerked around and treated like a fool. The only truth that mattered now was my path forward. The process of dismantling Derek's life, just as he had systematically destroyed mine. Letting the full force of his deceptions engulf me, I felt something inside harden like steel piercing flesh, a cold, brutal clarity propelled by one burning desire: revenge. My quest would begin by systematically stripping away every ill-gotten gain, every illegally obtained asset he had arrogated while lying to my face for over a year. Every dime he siphoned away from our life would be clawed back through the courts, and every shred of his false prophet reputation would be shredded to ribbons. Once I had regained all he stole, my money, my security, my dignity, then I would discard Derek's husk like the worthless, faithless snake he was. In time, I would leave his ruined life behind me as a fading speck in the rearview mirror. But first, he would suffer the consequences. All of them. The next morning I awoke with a pounding headache, but a renewed sense of purpose. While Derek had undoubtedly spent the night wallowing in self-pity at some seedy motel with his mistress, I had a plan to set in motion. First, I consulted Francine Harper, a high-powered divorce attorney known for her shark-like tenacity. Sitting ramrod straight in her sleek downtown office, she listened intently as I recounted every sordid detail of Derek's betrayal. When I finally fell silent, Francine flashed a predatory smile. "Well, it seems your husband has dug himself into quite the legal quagmire." I nodded, jaw clenched. "I want to take him for everything he's worth. The house, his business, finances, the whole 9 yards. Francine's smile widened with feral delight. Music to my ears. With the clear documentation of infidelity and his financial treachery, legally separating your marital assets will be child's play. She steepled her fingers, ice-blue eyes glinting. "We'll bleed him dry, Mrs. Wilson." A hard knot of vindictive satisfaction settled in my chest. "Please call me Evelyn." Next, I tracked down Miranda's address, a garish pink stucco McMansion in the ritzier side of town. I had to see the woman responsible for upending my life, the she-snake who had seduced and betrayed my husband right alongside him. Bracing myself, I rang the doorbell. After a moment, Miranda answered, makeup impeccably applied, but her hair still tousled from, well, I tried not to dwell on what she'd been up to. "Evelyn Wilson," she purred in a thick Spanish accent, looking me up and down like a prize heifer at a county fair. "I wondered when you'd come calling." I refused to be thrown by her blatant attempt to shake me. "We need to talk," I said coldly. "Oh." One perfectly shaped eyebrow arched upwards. "And what could we possibly have to discuss?" Leveling her with an icy stare, I didn't mince words. "Derek told me everything about your dalliances, the lies, the money trail, all of it." Instead of contrition, Miranda merely chuckled, her full lips curving into a smirk. Did he admit what a pathetic, simpering dog he's become? Virtually bankrupt, juggling debts from his failing business and expensive gifts for Moy? My blood boiled at her arrogant, dismissive tone. "Is that all you have to say? After destroying my marriage, my family?" Miranda shrugged, perfect shoulders rising in an elaborate shrug. "Your marriage was already over, Evelyn. Derek just needed a little push to realize his potential beyond the dull, drab existence you trapped him in." I fought the urge to slap the insufferable smirk from her face. "You're delusional, both of you." "Am I?" She laughed again, the sound like tinkling icicles scraping flesh. "We'll see, won't we? While you rant and rage about betrayal, I'll be basking in the spoils." With a wink, Miranda blew a mocking kiss and slammed the door, leaving me to stew in fresh waves of anger and humiliation. So much for getting answers. The conniving witch had clearly deluded herself into believing Derek's absurd lies, too. Fine. If that's how they wanted to play it, so be it. As I fumed on Miranda's ostentatious front porch, a hard kernel of determination took root. Derek and his mistress believed themselves the ultimate con artists, stealing away lives and fortunes through guile and backstabbing. They had severely underestimated their opponent. From this point on, I would match their deceptions tit for tat with uncompromising resolve. If they wanted to wallow in delusion, I would drag them kicking and screaming into the harsh light of consequences. Every deceit compounded, every dirty secret aired, until their precious house of lies lay in smoldering ruins around them. They had awoken a vengeful fury, and I would not stop until I had dismantled their tawdry fiction piece by agonizing piece. Starting with Derek's business and their twisted falsehoods about our marriage. With a sharp nod, I turned on my heel and marched towards my car, mentally mapping out my next confrontations and strategies. There would be no more tears or recriminations, only the systematic destruction of the intricate web they had spun. It was time to fight fire with fire, and this was just the spark to ignite the inferno. With Francine Harper's legal expertise and my own thirst for vengeance fueling me, I refused to waste another moment. It was time to go on the offensive against Derek and his mistress. My first mission: rally allies to my cause and undermine Derek's standing in our community. The man who was once regarded as a reputable business owner and husband was about to become a social pariah. I started by reconnecting with old friends from the neighborhood that Derek had gradually alienated over the years with his arrogance and greed. Inviting them over one by one, I revealed the full, sordid truth about his affair, laying out the incriminating evidence in stark detail. Shock and outrage spread across their faces with each new revelation. But as their disbelief turned to fury on my behalf, I could see their resolve strengthening as well. That low-life snake! Jack Milner, my neighbor across the street, slammed his fist on the table hard enough to rattle the china. After all the times he conned folks with his schemes, this is a new low, even for Derek. What a dirtbag, his wife Patty chimed in, venom dripping from her words. Using you like that, stealing from your own household? I'll spread the word, Evelyn. That pig is finished in this town. One by one, my neighbors, including those I had drifted from during Derek's ascent as a wealthy businessman, vowed to stand by my side. With their support and Francine Harper working overtime on the legal front, the pressure on Derek intensified from all angles. Even local law enforcement joined the crusade, particularly a young patrolman named Grant Edwards, who had caught Derek attempting to solicit business illegally on multiple occasions over the years. Guy always rubbed me the wrong way. Grant muttered as he finalized the paperwork on a stack of formal complaints against Derek's auto shop, acting like he was above the law with all his money and connections. His piercing blue eyes found mine over the desk. Don't you worry, ma'am. When this hits the courts and papers, everybody'll know what a scumbag your husband turned out to be. Watching Grant escort Derek into the back of a squad car on charges of fraud and operating a non-compliant business was a delicious taste of revenge, but only the first course in the larger meal to be served. With the community rapidly turning against him, Derek's life outside the home began to crumble. Old clients stopped bringing their cars in for service at his shop, costing him thousands in revenue. His sleazy reputation traveled fast, culminating in vendors and lenders abruptly canceling contracts and lines of credit. I could have relished seeing Derek's animalistic panic and desperation as his precious success story collapsed around him. But that would have been a small, short-sighted victory. Instead, I calmly watched the dominoes topple, biding my time until I could rip away the last vestiges of the lie he called our marriage. Derek and his mistress may have thought they were pulling a long con, playing us all for fools. How deliciously ironic that the most elaborate fiction was the sham of a life he had fabricated around me. But unlike Miranda's pathetic delusions, I would patiently dismantle the artifice until all that remained was the harsh truth that the great Derek Jordan was nothing but a sniveling, faithless liar and cheat. Every ally recruited, every damning piece of evidence circulated, brought me one step closer to that final, glorious implosion. Let Derek lash out and scream at the unfairness of it all. In the end, he had sealed his own fate through his arrogance and sins. Grant and the boys in blue were already building an airtight case of illegal business practices, fraud, and tax evasion. Meanwhile, Francine was sharpening her talons for the divorce proceedings that would strip Derek of every ill-gotten gain in his legal but sordid empire. Word was, even Miranda the she-snake had already begun distancing herself from her disgraced meal ticket, scurrying to find her next unwitting target. By the time this escalating tempest reached its zenith, that contemptible duo would be left with nothing but ashes of their deceit, finally exposed as the irredeemable con artists they were. And I would be waiting, a lingering taste of victory on my lips as just reward for perseverance against all their injustice. Over the following weeks, my intricate web of sabotage tightened around Derek's crumbling life. Thanks to the tireless efforts of Officer Grant Edwards and Francine Harper, the noose of legal consequences grew increasingly inescapable. Meanwhile, my own crusade of vengeance had transformed me from a downtrodden divorcee into a force commanding respect and drawing followers to my cause. Where Derek had used his ill-gotten wealth to build alliances through bribery and manipulation, I had galvanized genuine support through sheer determination for justice. Which was why that crisp March evening found me poised before a crowd of hundreds, all assembled for the annual Founders' Day festival downtown. Derek's auto shop had been a major sponsor of the event for years, his final, desperate grasp at maintaining a respectable public image. Well, his tenuous facade was about to be obliterated before the entire community. Smoothing the sleek charcoal pantsuit I had selected for maximum impact, I stepped up to the microphone, muscles tense in anticipation. On cue, a spotlight instantly bathed me in a harsh glow, all other sounds falling into an expectant hush. Let the fireworks begin. Good evening, friends and neighbors, I began in a steady, measured tone. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the founders of our fine town. No one missed the mocking pause, prompting murmurs to ripple through the assembly. My coal-black eyes glittered as they found Derek fidgeting in the front row beside Miranda, the arrogant she-snake draped on his arm like a lurid accessory. Plastering on a serene smile, I continued. It's only fitting that an event honoring our community's proud legacy be the stage for exposing one man's utter betrayal of everything we hold sacred. With a sharp nod, I indicated Derek's pale, sweat-beaded face. A legacy of lies, thievery, and repugnant infidelities to the wife he professed to cherish. Gasps of shock echoed through the stunned crowd as I paused for maximum dramatic impact. Even Derek seemed stunned into silence, frozen like a jacklighted deer in my ruthless crosshairs. The bombshells had only just begun to fall. You all know my husband Derek as a respected business owner and upstanding citizen, I said, gentling my tone to unmask the venom behind the words. A paragon of success through hard work and dedication to our community's best interests. Well, I'm afraid that illusion is about to be shattered. With surgical precision, I produced the now familiar photographs, bank statements, and legal documentation of my husband's misconduct, displaying them for the entire assembly to behold on towering screens flanking the stage. For over a year, Derek has been cheating on me, indulging in sordid dalliances with this woman. I leveled my accusing finger at Miranda, her eyes widening in horror at being exposed so brutally. Not only that, he's bled our assets dry to fund his despicable affair, gambling away the life we built through years of sweat and sacrifice. Disgust contorted Derek's face as the catastrophic revelations detonated before the packed crowd, his clients, vendors, even formerly loyal employees. As they craned their necks at the explosive evidence, the hushed buzz swelled into outright shouts and howls of condemnation. "Scumbag! Wife-beater! Low-life liar!" The furious taunts peppered Derek from every direction, stripping him of the last shreds of his unearned dignity. I drank in every agonizing second of public humiliation like a parched wanderer gulping life-giving water. Let him suffer the blazing disgrace of being unmasked for the contemptible, faithless snake he truly was. For once, he had no blustering words or facile deceptions to hide behind, only the stark, damning truth laid bare for all to witness. As trusted friends like the Milners and others in the crowd turned on Derek with unbridled rage, I felt the last remaining chains of our poisoned bond finally shattering. That hollow specter of a man no longer held any power over me, not emotionally, financially, or socially. My vengeance was complete. Watching Derek wither under the scorching weight of his sins, there was only a hollow sense of emptiness. No relief, no catharsis, but rather the airless vacuum of having purged a malignant tumor from my life. He had ceased to be my tormentor or adversary, but a shriveled, worthless husk to be discarded and forgotten, a cautionary example of arrogance and deceit, finally imploding under the weight of its own lies. As the outraged mob closed in on their former idol, their angry howls swirling like a cyclone, I turned and walked calmly off stage, my steps light and unburdened. Let the sharks descend on Derek to feast. His dismal remains no longer concerned me. My path forward led only towards a new dawn of justice, truth, and long-overdue healing. The aftermath of my public immolation of Derek at the Founders' Day festival was swift and catastrophic for my soon-to-be ex-husband. Within days, his auto repair business shuttered as vendors and creditors refused to work with the disgraced charlatan. His sleazy affair with Miranda was international gossip fodder, his name forever etched in infamy. Yet the most punishing reckoning was only just beginning in the form of the highly publicized divorce proceedings orchestrated by my brilliant attorney, Francine Harper. When the day finally arrived for our hearing in Bridgeton County Court, I strode through the towering oak doors like a warrior marching into the final battle. Only this time, victory was all but assured. Francine had spent months methodically assembling an airtight legal case to decimate Derek's empire and render him a bankrupt, broken husk. The courtroom fell into a hush as Judge Alicia Zhang entered and called the proceedings to order. After perfunctory opening statements, Francine stood and began pelting Derek and his mealy-mouthed defense attorney with the crushing evidence. Bank statements and hidden transactions laid bare the money trails revealing his financial schemes. Telephone records and surveillance footage exposed the salacious trysts with Miranda. Even former employees and associates took the stand, testimony providing the damning final nails into Derek's deceit-riddled coffin. I watched with cold satisfaction as Derek's expression contorted from arrogant confidence into the sweaty rictus of a man enduring the implosion of his false reality. Try as he might to bluster and fabricate desperate counterclaims, the tsunami of incontrovertible proof Francine unleashed simply overwhelmed and submerged his pathetic deceptions. Miranda, as ever, attempted to slither away from the blast radius, abandoning her married meal ticket while clinging to her designer accessories like a shipwreck survivor. But even she could not escape the punishing judgment unleashed upon their vile, adulterous charade. As the final, merciless salvos rained down, Judge Zhang's iron-jawed pronouncement echoed through the chamber like the peal of freedom bells. This court hereby rules that the plaintiff, Evelyn Wilson, is entitled to a substantial judgment award, including full custody of the marital residence, 70% of all liquid assets and investments, and punitive damages from the defendant for criminal conversation, alienation of affection, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The judge's words blurred together, the legalese virtually indecipherable, but for the sweeping scope of the ruling in my favor. Derek gaped like a landed fish, the mask of his sanity crumbling to expose the incoherent, narcissistic monster beneath. This is outrageous, he spluttered amidst outraged grimaces from onlookers. Your Honor, I demand a mistrial. This is a sham proceeding, a personal vendetta. But his delusional blustering only hammered the final nail into his own disgraced legacy. With an imperious wave of her gavel, Judge Zhang had him forcibly removed, ranting and spittle-flying all the way. Her final words to me were far simpler, a mere whisper holding infinite unspoken weight. Justice has been served, Mrs. Wilson. I wish you well in your new chapter. And with that, my long, nightmarish captivity was at last over. I walked from that hallowed chamber into brilliant spring sunshine, blinking away the stale ghosts of my former life. Derek's compulsive lies, betrayals, and denials belonged to the past, like some misbegotten fever dream finally exorcised from my soul. As Francine and I embraced, her vulpine smile spoke of hard-fought vindication. You deserve every syllable of that ruling, Evelyn. That narcissistic leech got precisely what he had coming. I nodded, the realization washing over me in waves. It's over. After everything, he has nothing left to ruin or contaminate. A bracing laugh formed in my throat, building to a mirthful crescendo of rebirth. He's just emptiness, a void to be forgotten amidst the new horizons ahead. Tears of joy mingled with ones of sorrow, a baptism into the vast unknown awaiting me. Ambition long suppressed of hopes deferred for too many years, all stretched out in a shimmering future unencumbered by Derek's toxicity. As Francine ushered me to her sleek town car, I felt lighter than I had in decades, my spirit unburdened, soaring on the thermals of long overdue liberation. The seismic tears in my life's fabric would scar, surely, but they would mend in due course. The woman reborn from the ashes of deceit would persevere, as she was always destined. My rebirth was nigh, and I would greet it with open arms, basking in the light of justice achieved and endless possibility ahead. In the days following my legal annihilation of Derek in divorce court, I waited for the inevitable backlash. The narcissistic beast, having been caged and defanged by the justice system, would surely lash out with one final tantrum of rage before descending into well-deserved obscurity. I didn't have to wait long. A little over a week after the ruling, I returned home from stocking up on renovation supplies for my newly reacquired house to find Derek's snarling visage pressed against my kitchen window. Sweat stained his crumpled shirt, his hair disheveled and eyes wild with desperation. "You vicious harpy!" He slammed a meaty fist against the glass, gaps in the closed blinds punctuating his muffled shouts. "You want to see me ruined so badly? Is that what you want?" I stared at the pathetic display with weary disdain. "Get off my property, Derek. You lost your right to darken my door when you betrayed me." "Lost my rights?" He barked out a harsh laugh. "You took everything from me, my business, my money, my entire life. I hope you're happy taking everything, leaving me a beaten dog out on the streets." "Don't give me that self-pitying drivel," I snapped, refusing to be cowed. "You made your choices. I simply provided the consequences you so rightfully earned through your actions." Growling incoherently, Derek wrenched open the flimsy screen door and began pounding on the inner windows, veins bulging in his flushed temples. "You cut off my bank accounts, got the police raiding my shop. You won't be satisfied until I'm rotting in a cell, will you? All for the crime of falling out of love with an icy shrew like you." Rather than shrink from his bloated rage, I felt only searing disgust. He was utterly delusional, incapable of accepting the ruination brought on by his own lust and greed. Where was his vaunted charm and manipulation now? This ranting display was simply the death rattle of a ruined man, spiraling towards a well-deserved crash. Why give it any more energy or oxygen? With a disdainful shake of my head, I simply turned and strode from the kitchen, leaving Derek to howl and flail against the barrier separating his ugly I did from my new sphere of tranquility. Eventually, the thumps and profanities ceased as the impotent volcano finally expended its churlish outburst. The vile eruption had altered nothing. It merely confirmed his irredeemable decline into self-inflicted oblivion. I settled in the living room, sipping a soothing chamomile tea as dusk bathed the streets in shadows. Before long, a polite rap announced the arrival of Officer Grant Edwards, my steadfast ally in the Bridgeton Police Department. "Everything okay, Mrs. Wilson?" He touched the brim of his uniform cap, eyes scanning the property while his other hand rested on his service belt. "We had a disturbing report about a belligerent trespasser making threats." "It's quite all right, Grant. Just Derek throwing one final tantrum before surrendering to his pathetic new reality." I allowed a thin smile to crease my features. "He's gone now, though I'd wager a disorderly conduct charge wouldn't go amiss on his ever-growing rap sheet." Grant grunted, unsurprised. "You know, we already have enough to put him away on various fraud, tax evasion, and illegal business practice charges. This latest outburst would make one more simple addendum to the dossier." "By all means." My smile took on a vindicated edge. "I, for one, am beyond ready to be free of that wretched man's toxicity. Let the book be thrown at him with full force." With a nod, Grant produced his Miranda rights and strode towards the back alley, no doubt where the bloated carcass of Derek's pride had slunk off to lick its wounds. Part of me recoiled, knowing his inevitable arrest would be an ugly, demoralizing spectacle. Yet I felt no remorse, no ethical twinges over this final, humiliating coda playing out. Despite his raging delusions, Derek's meltdown was simply the karmic crucible he alone had forged through his repugnant betrayals and callous avarice. This cancerous cycle of harm and exploitation would finally reach its conclusion in a cold jail cell, far removed from civilized society and the lives he had so casually ravaged. Perhaps, during those long, bitter nights of atonement, he would gain a sliver of self-awareness regarding his shocking depravity. More likely, he would remain an empty, insatiable black hole, forever seeking to devour the light and substance of others to sate his all-consuming ego. In that case, eternal isolation was not only warranted, but absolutely necessary to protect the innocent from his corrupting influence. Whether through self-reflection or forced purgatory, Derek Jordan's pathology would be neutralized. The malignancy of his soul, so thoroughly metastasized in my life through his treachery, would finally be cut out once and for all. His wrathful, misogynistic snarls would devolve into whimpers, fading into a cold silence that I would relish like a deserving victor. As the flashing police lights lit up the night, I settled back into my chair, sipping my tea and exhaling a soul-deep breath of relief. The demon had been exorcised. All that remained was to embrace my deliverance and bask in the healing light of justice served. In the weeks following Derek's dramatic arrest, I didn't shed a single tear or waste any lingering regrets. My soul had been cauterized, forever immunized against the poisonous deceptions that had nearly destroyed me. All that remained was to embrace my hard-won renewal, a life reforged from the ashes of treachery into one of purpose and authenticity. Of course, the scandal continued swirling through the community like a brush fire, fueled by insatiable gossip. Clucking tongues passed judgment on the disgraced husk of Derek Jordan and his mistress Miranda, now dead to me. Mere footnotes in a sordid life chapter been excised and discarded. My focus remained solely on nurturing the fresh, fertile soil where my new reality could blossom and thrive. During the long overdue renovations to restore my reclaimed home's splendor, I found solace in the arduous but satisfying labor, demolishing and rebuilding in a poetic parallel to my own personal journey. It was among the rubble and sawdust that I finally shed the emotional armor required for survival, allowing tender vulnerability to take root once more. What was at first an almost meditative solitude amidst the solstice blossoms outside slowly gave way to a rekindling of my innate passion for progress and community involvement. Before long, a spark of inspiration struck. I would establish a personal support network to help women and families in my city overcome their own struggles against betrayal and subjugation. The more I envisioned the concept taking shape, the more invigorated I became to nurture its success as a form of redemptive, karmic castigation against those like Derek who would dare inflict such spiritual ravages on the innocent. Within months, the Bridgeton Center for Domestic Empowerment took shape under my leadership. What began as informal weekly gatherings hosted in my own sunny parlor steadily blossomed into a formidable resource, one dedicated to providing financial and legal counseling for victims, but even more crucially, emotional reinforcement to summon the inner reserves of resilience and self-worth. Each new face that crossed my doorstep, bearing its own tale of devastation and heartache, filled me with rejuvenating purpose, and a sense that from my own tribulations could sprout wider societal progress. I recognized the steely determination that had carried me through my own worst valleys, mirrored in the haunted eyes of each fledgling member. And each time this echo of myself and my struggles resonated in the raw wounds laid bare during our gatherings, I was re-inspired to redouble my efforts as their empathetic, emboldened shepherd. In those moments of solace and revelation, I no longer felt like the naive woman who had been so systematically betrayed and denigrated by her own soulmate. My identity recentered around the indelible truth that I was a survivor, forged of refined, indestructible alloy that no amount of deceit or malice could ever compromise again. That revelation solidified the morning I received word of Derek's sentencing on the myriad criminal charges leveled against him. The news, delivered by a curt communique from Officer Grant Edwards' department, lacked any flourish or elaboration beyond the stark clinical facts. Hereby sentence the defendant Derek Jordan to a term of incarceration not less than 15 years and orders him to pay punitive fines and victim restitution of I let the document flutter from my fingertips without finishing. So final a period had been lanced on that toxic chapter. It was rendered anticlimactic. No elation or bitterness crossed my thoughts as I pictured the contemptible shell of my former life-mate being hauled off in manacles, only a visceral sense of karmic completion, like a broken limb having been reset and splinted to heal properly at last. As if to underscore that catharsis, the next envelope in the morning's mail delivery gave me profound pause. From the plain, unmarked packaging, I instantly recognized the familiar scrawl that had first alerted me to Derek's betrayal over a year earlier. This time, however, the letter's contents held no power to rattle or sting, only the insipid, feeble protests of a diseased and quarantined psyche. Evelyn, what we had was once something precious before your vindictiveness destroyed it all. I hope you can find healing as I commit to atoning for my sins against you. The rest blathered on with the meaningless false piety of every other lie that had contaminated our union. I let the pages flutter away, smiling at the crisp spring breeze that scattered them into oblivion. In that moment, immersed in rebirth and growth, I discovered a deeper, more regenerative grace than could ever be cultured from bitterness or retaliation against Derek's hollow words. True transcendence came from letting go, recasting torment into ultimate liberation. As the year's first butterflies sample the sweet perfume of rejuvenated life across my gardens, I feel a similar metamorphosis being ushered in alongside spring's vibrant reimagining. The Evelyn unlocked from her shrouded chrysalis was no longer defined by the emotional prison of her past betrayals. Instead, the woman with cheeks now flushed from the warm, nurturing solstice wasn't she who had been so grievously shattered, but a mythical, radiant archetype of possibility and deliverance, reborn directly from Derek's contemptible ashes.